Hi everyone. Now from our last session, we were able to create the deployment files for the employee service and also the department service. All right. We managed to have our two services, employee and department service, running, and we created the department deployment to deploy our department service, and then we created the employee deployment to deploy our employee service. And then we also have the relation between these two services, whereby for now I'm using one single MySQL, but then we can be able to have multiple MySQL instances and for each particular service. But then for now I'm just using this one to illustrate the process of connecting the services. Now if I open within the employee service, and we managed to expose our services, and in this case we have our department LB running on this port and our employee LB, which is the load balance IP, running on this port. Now let's just quickly run through what we covered. So in this case, you can be able to see that within this particular file, I have just replaced this one with the host of the LB balance, load balance, which is 610.97. And now if I'm able to list, I can send the list and be able to get the list of employees. Then now let's just do the same for the department service. So I'm going just to copy this one, also the URL, and go to our department service. In this case, I'm going to open the department service. Let me close all this, and then department service here, expand that, and then change this host URL to this one. And then you can see that if I send this request, you can see that I'm able to create the department number 1. Then if I send this to get the list, you can see that now I have a list of computer science. Let me create another list. It is going to be information technology for this case, and then make the request again. You can see that I have department number 2. Send the request. You can see that now I have the 2 department. Now the next thing that I'm going to do, let's see the endpoint that is being called by our employee service to get the list of departments. I'm going just to send the IDs the way they are, send that request. You can see that I'm able to get the same list. All right. Now the next thing that we need to do is that we need to ensure that whenever we are making the call from the employee service, so let me pin this one here, and then go to the employee service, and whereby we are getting the departments with employee with the department. So if I make this call, let me make this call once again, you'll be able to see that we are getting an error, and this is ideally failed to convert type value of string to the required type of integer. So what we are going to do is a little bit simple. We need to ensure that our service level is actually exposed correctly. So the first thing I'm going to do is close these files, and then go to the deployment files, which is the K8 folder, and I'm going to go to the department service. And now we need just to review our services a little bit. So you can see here we exposed a cluster service, which is an internal service known as department SFC, and in this case it's a cluster IP. And now what we need to do here, you can see that our ports are running on port 8081, but then here the target port that I'm supposed to target should be 8081, not 80. Right? Then now the port that I need to run this service is going to be 80, port 80 in this case. That's the only adjustment I need to make on my deployment service. Now let me just apply these files once again to configure the new service. I'm going just to make use of kubectl apply F and then the K8 folder. Alright, now you can see that now my LB department SFC has been configured. Now if I check now on Minikube service list, so we're going to do Minikube service list, then we should be able to get the department SFC running, right? So it's running, it's no node port, and it's not a load balancer. So let's just see how then can I be able to connect to it internally from the employee service. So let's just first confirm that. So we're going to do kubectl get port. And in this case, you can see that now this is my employee port. I'm going to log into it. So we are going to do kubectl log -f then I'm going to, exec, and to make use of exec, then -it, then you're going to give the port name, which is this one, and then you're going to say bin/bash. So I'm going to log in to that. You can see that now I'm on the root of this one. So what I'm going to do is to try and show you how you can be able to test where your internal service is running on. So I'm going just to do car -vvv. Then for this case, we are going to make a get endpoint, a similar endpoint request to get a department by ID1. So I'm going just to show you that I can just make a call which is going to go to API, which is going to get the department by ID2. Right? So what I'm going to do is going to be HTTP, then / I'm going to give now the department service. So you need to give the name of the service. In this case, I'm going to give that. Then it's running on port 8080, so I don't need to specify the port. Then I'm going to give the value, which is going to be, in this case, we are going to make use of value of API. So in this case, it's going to be API, which is the path that we are going to call. So I'm going just to call this one, get department by number. So I'm going just to copy that and paste it here. And now remove this one. And now if I do that, you can see that I'm able to get the information of department information technology. And you can see that if I do another one for department ID number 1, you can see that I'm able to get the computer science department. That's how you can be able to confirm that your service is actually running. So what you're going to do here is that we need to adjust our host information within our department service to be able to, in place of that, we supply the department SFC host. So what I'm going to do is going to be the host IP. So we need to go to our department, right? Under our config map, cluster config map, I'm going to also introduce another value, which is going to be, in this case, going to be the department hosts. And this one, we are going to make use of the department host, which is going to be HTTP : // then going to be the name of the service that we are going to call, which is going to be department SFC. And that is what I'm going to have here. Then everything else that we are going to have here is going to be simple. So we are going just to have this one created within department service hosts. So we're going to have service host. And this is where we are going to locate, right? Now, that is the first amendment we need to do on our cluster config map. Now, the next amendment that we need to do is supposed to be on our service level, which is within where we are making the call to the department service. As you can see, we are referring to port 8080, right? So we need to ensure that this one is going to be a configuration, a configurable value. So to do that, I'm going to introduce within my resources application YAML file, I'm going just to introduce another key, which is going to be department service. So I'm going just to have service, then hosts. I'm going just to have that host URL. Right, so I'm going just to have that host URL, and this one, for this case, we are into within the value itself, we are going to refer to it as HTTP port 8081. So we are going to refer this value here. Right, so you want to make use of the port, that is the HTTP information. So in this case, we are going to have that. But then we want the default to be something else. So what we're going to do, this is going to be the default. Now for us to make this one configurable within Kubernetes, we need to expose it as a variable. So I'm going just to have that variable coming this way. Alright, and then now the default is going to be this one. Right, so I need to enclose this one. Then now here we are going to have the department variable, department underscore service underscore hosts underscore URL. So I'm going just to have that as the value that I need to supply. Now in case there is not supplied, then I run that over this one. right? Now that's one. Now the next adjustment that we're going to make is to refer to this variable whenever we are dealing with the employee service. So I'm going just to inject this value using at value annotation here. We are going to have this one at value. So we need to refer this one with at value from Spring Boot, right? And then we are going to make use of a string. Then we are going to make use of $sign here, and then we refer to this host URL. Now in this case we are going to have a string value of so I'm going to make this one private string department. So let me just copy the name here and change. So this is going to be department service host URL. So you're going to pick that one dynamically from the config file, which is the YAML file, right? So that's all that I need to do, right? Now private string. Now here we go down where we are making use of HTTP localhost 881. We are not going to make use of that anymore. So in this case we are going to remove this and have this one before. So we are going to have the department host URL, then slash this one, because this one will forever remain the same in our service. So I'm going just to replace any instance of that with this, right? So I'm going just to remove that, right? Then the next one we are going to do is going to make this adjustment here, plus, and then lastly at this point, right? So you need to make that simple adjustment plus. Right, so with those adjustments, the last adjustment, once we'll be able to deploy, then we need to supply this value of the department service host URL within our deployment file of the employee service. So in this case, we are going to go to the employee deployment. Then what you're going to do, we are going to refer to the config map. So I'm going just to duplicate this key, right? And then now instead of that, we are going to have department service host URL. Now we are going to refer to the cluster config map, and this particular cluster config map we are going to refer to the department service host key, and that is what we are going to have here, right, as the key reference. Now that's all the adjustment that we are going to do. Now in the next session, let's be able to push this particular updated image and deploy it once again. Thank you for watching the video. Remember to subscribe, share, and keep tuned for the next session. Thank you.